Hi, this is Mark at learnhowtogarden.com, and in today's episode of the 10-Minute Gardener we're going to be talking about basil. Basil has become the herb. You know, we all use a huge amount of it. It's one of the necessities as most of our cooking, but a lot of us still buy it from shops when we really shouldn't. It really is quite a simple herb to grow. The king of herbs, they call it. In fact, any of you who are sort of roughly my age, about 50, will remember that little ditty from Watch with Mother the Herbs. It actually said, you know, I am Sir Basil, the king of the herbs. And that's because the actual name basil is a derivative of the Greek word meaning king or kingly. This is how most of us are used to getting our basil, aren't we? These are quite small leaves, about, you know, twice as big as your thumb, as big as your finger. There's 4 little plants in here, and if this is all you've ever experienced of basil, you're really not getting the best of the tastes. It's quite a resinous-y, sort of aromatic herb. It's not native to the Mediterranean. It's actually native originally to India, very common across the Asian subtropics, and that gives you a hint that it's not grown like we grow a lot of our Mediterranean herbs. Although it's synonymous with Italian food, and the Italians have had it from about the 15th century, brought back by the Crusaders, it's not naturally from there. It needs totally different conditions to rosemary, sage, thyme, you know, the classic Mediterranean herbs. It needs a lot more humidity, it needs a lot more goodness in the soil, but it really doesn't like the sunshine. It doesn't like baking sun at sort of midday. So one of the classic ways that we eat basil is with our tomatoes. We have it with tomato, basil and mozzarella salad. You know, I'll be doing one at the end of this video as a treat for me. It's my favourite salad to eat, certainly throughout most of the summer. So the way I grow it is in 2 very different ways. In the 10-minute garden, I grow it in a grow bag, which I've got small little herb pots in, and we can probably just show you a picture of that now because it's from the 10-minute garden video. So that's how it looks growing in grow bags in the little herb pots. But here in the tunnel we actually grow it in a slightly different way, and if you've got a greenhouse border, this is a great way to grow it. As I say, if we focus down here, these are the basil plants we're growing, and the first thing I want you to notice is the size of the leaves. They're 3 times the size of the ones you buy from a shop, and they are much, much darker. The taste is much more intense. That's because they're not grown hydroponically. We're not forcing them. These are growing in the soil or in a grow bag, and it's got much thicker stems on. If you're using it in a salad, you need to pick the leaves off. If you're actually making pesto, you can just take the whole lot and use it. So our basil plants were grown on, and what we've done, we've planted a row straight down the middle of our 2 rows of cordon tomatoes. And that's, as I said, they don't like the midday sun. They like lots and lots of moisture and humidity, and they like exactly the same growing conditions as your tomatoes. Strange as your tomatoes are from South America. When you grow your basil, if you were going to have this with a salad, you take the leaves. If you're making that classic pesto, you can just take it off. And if we can focus right down here, you can see that at the junction there are already other leaves waiting to sprout. So if you pick it off low, it will just make bushier plants. And along this row we've actually got 3 different sorts of basil. We've got the classic Genovese basil, which is what we use a lot of the time in our salads and for pesto. Next to that, in the middle, we've got a lemon basil, and if you focus on that, you'll find that has smaller, more delicate leaves. And then last but not least, we've got our red basil, again really grown purely to look nice in a salad, because to be totally honest, what's fascinating is if you put that basil into a Magimix with your garlic and your pine nuts and your oil and your Parmesan cheese, the minute you press zip to pulse it up, you'll find that the colour disappears and it goes back to green, which is quite fascinating. So basil needs a much more moist environment. It needs heat. It sulks if it's too cold, but it also burns if there's too much sun. So it needs a much more humid tropical atmosphere than your classic Mediterranean herbs. Again, if you're going to feed it with a half or a third strength fertiliser. Too much fertiliser just gets rid of your taste in things. It seems to really grow well next to your tomatoes, and I think it's not just because of the actual fact that they like the same conditions. They seem to have a real affinity for growing well together. So if you're going to grow it in a smaller greenhouse like the 10-minute garden, you know, put your herb grow bag either in front or to the side of your tomato plants, and it will be really, really beneficial for both of them. Like I say, very quick, very simple, very easy. You really don't need to be buying that basil from your supermarkets. You know, a pack of seed is 95p. That's at least a third less than one pot of basil. And for those of you who plant on those pots and wonder why sometimes they struggle or one or two die, they are not grown the same way as you're going to grow them in soil. They're grown much quicker, and their nutrients literally normally are hydroponically fed to them. So it's very difficult for them to transplant into your garden. Much easier to go out, you know, get a pack of seeds or go to your local nursery and buy a small basil plant. I hope that's been informative. I hope you've enjoyed today's quick video blog. Any questions you've got, you know, don't hesitate to sort of ask us. I'll try to answer them. As I've often said, there's no such thing as a daft question, and I'll try not to give you a daft answer. And that's Mark from the 10-Minute Gardener saying thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you enjoy what we're doing.